G'day and welcome back to part 3 of my Goblin Time Spot radio. In parts 1 and 2 I got the radio working, I fixed the speaker up, it's going alright, it's all aligned and working pretty well. The radio is fitted with a clock, and in part 1 I pulled it apart and the coil was open circuit. I've ordered some wire, I have it now, I'm going to try and rewind this thing. And there's the wire there, it's 0.06 millimeters in diameter, it is very, very fine. This is the original spool out of the clock. I've taken the wire off it and I've got it back to just the plastic spool. I've made up a couple of carriers so I can mount it in my winding machine. I managed to salvage the fly lead wire from the old clock, and I've soldered a bit of the new wire on the end, and I just need to poke it through this little grommet here. There we go, that was easy. And I'll just put a bit of Kapton tape there to try and hold it against the side. I managed to get some tape on. It was really fiddly, so I turned the cameras off so I could see what I was doing, but it is on there, and I'm going to attempt to wind. I don't have a lot of expectations with this. I have the winder turned on, it's all programmed, ready to go. I'll push start and we'll watch this bit of wire snap. Alright, didn't snap. It's actually going on alright. This is never going to come out neat. It'll build up on one side. Even the wire that was done professionally was all over the place. This has been going for about 2 minutes, and it's building up on this left edge here where the wire is. I expected that. But it's going on pretty well. I haven't been timing this. It's probably about 4 minutes or so, and it's going on pretty well. So I'll just let it run. I'll go and make a coffee. I'll come back when it's finished. This has been going for over half an hour. It's nice and level. It didn't break. And it's about the level that the old wire was on this spool. So I'm going to turn it off and we'll finish off the winding. So I'll push stop. It's a little bit built up on that side, but that's okay, that's fine. I'll wrap some tape around here and that'll hold it all together while I take it out of the machine. I picked up the end of the fine wire and soldered it onto the fly lead here. So I'm just coating it all with a bit of Kapton tape, and that'll hold it. No worries. So all I got to do now is see if it works. Alright, let's see if it works. Oh yeah, it's going to work. It's going to work. 10.7k of resistance. I have no idea what it's supposed to be, but it's got continuity. It's about the right amount of wire on there, so yeah, it should work. One thing I didn't show is how I mounted the spool the wire was being taken from, and it has a big hole there, and if you put a big axle through there, the friction is going to be enormous. If you put a small axle through there, it's going to wobble around as it's trying to pull it off. So I printed up some little plugs, and they're about 1 millimeter thick there, and it fits in there like that. And I think it's about a 3mm hole, and there's one on either end. I screwed a couple of bits of wood together so that the wire was up at the same height, so it was coming down straight, it wasn't going up around. And I've mounted a bit of 3mm rod through it and just put a thread on it and put some nuts on there. And then the spool mounted on, and I just put a nut on there to hold it. But it spins very freely, it's on a very small axle, so that worked really well. Yeah, look at that, it's just going to keep going. So that may be handy if you're trying to wind off very fine wire. I'm mounting the coil back in its little cage, and it all seems to be going together. Okay, I can put it back on here. There's little locator holes there that line up with pins, so I think it just goes like that. There it is. I'll put this plate back on. I'm going to put some power on it, and I'll just see if the actual clock works. The clock's gummed up a little bit. Should be okay, might work. There's 3 screws to go in here. I'll put them in and I'll put some power on. I have a power cord here with a little clip on the end. So I'll put the wires in there. I'll put the second hand on so I can see it working. I'm ready to go. I'll put some power on. And there it goes. Fantastic. Even with all the old clayey grease, it's still working, so I'm very happy. Very happy. Now, of course, I've got to clean this and re-lube it. I'm thinking maybe just take all the electrics off and stick it in the ultrasonic machine and clean it up that way, and then re-lube it. I have my ultrasonic cleaner here, so I'm ready to put it in. It's been heating up for a while. It's just on 70 degrees. So I've got the clock parts here. I'll put them in there. So I'll put this on for about, I don't know, 15 minutes or so. Put it on 20. We'll come back and see how it goes. It's almost finished. There it goes. Okay, let's have a look. Doesn't look much different. That's come up pretty good. It's still quite warm. The grease from there's gone, so that's all gone. It looks alright. This brass colour here hasn't come back. It's steel with brass, well, a gold coating on it or plating. So that hasn't come back. But all the oil and everything's out of the mechanism. I think I can just lubricate that and put it back together. I've just realised to get to the pivot points I need to take this plate off, and I think the main plate will stay there if I undo these little extensions here. I think this top plate will come out, so I think that'll lift off. There you go. But there's the little pivots I need to get to, just a drop of oil in each of those. That's all it needs. I have some clock oil in this little poly oiler, and it just needs that's way too much. Oh wow. Yeah, what I'm trying to say is it just needs the time. This oil is no good, it's too big. Now if you leave that there, the oil will flow and pull the oil out of where the bearing is, out of the hole there. So you need to clean that off. Now I need a better way of oiling these. Alright, I've done them properly. They've only got the very smallest drop of oil on top of each one of those pivot points. Have a bit of wire here, and I've just dipped it in the puddle of oil, and that may well be enough. That seems to be better. I can see the oil in the hole, but it's not hanging out the top. Alright, I'll find any other spots and keep going, but that's how it's supposed to be done. I've finished lubricating this. I've reassembled everything, so it's ready to go back in the case. I have the housing for the clock here, and I've got a new grommet there. I just need to pass the wires through. I've got the wires through there. I'll just push that to home, I think. There we go. There's a screw here, and it screws into the back of the clock and holds that cover on. It also holds that bracket. So I'll just do it up loose. There we go. The clock goes in there, and then there's 3 screws to secure it. Then the alarm setting gear goes on there. Then the new clock face can go on as well. And tighten the 2 screws up. There's a screw on the back here that holds that brace or bracket, and now I can fully tighten that screw that goes in the back of the clock. I've got a new grommet there, so I can feed the wires through, and I'll connect them up on the bottom. I've soldered all the wires up underneath, so it's ready to go. I was going to put the hands on. I then realised I couldn't get this knob on. It fails with this knob. There's no room to get it on and slide it on the shaft. So I had to take all that off again, put the knob on, then put it all back together. Now when I first got the radio, I noticed this knob sticks out further than that. This one was almost hard to get to. It needs to come further forward. And looking down from the top here, this knob is further out than that. It's probably maybe 3, maybe even 4 mil further out than this one. And I need to move this one forward. This one was hard to get once it was in the case. You couldn't quite get to it. This is looking at the volume control from the front, and there's 2 screws on the bottom holding this bracket. The bracket connects the volume control. If I undo the screws, I should be able to remove the bracket and the volume control. I've loosened the two screws off, so this should come out, apart from the wires being in the way, of course. I'll remove the knob and it should show us the potentiometer. I'll remove the potentiometer and I'll be able to work on the bracket. Well, there's the bracket. It's not bent or anything, it's pretty straight. So I think what I'll do is elongate the holes and make it adjustable. That way I can pull it forward and the knob should come forward with it. I'll go and do that out in the workshop and come back. I've cut slots in the bracket. I'll refit it and we'll see what it looks like. I've reassembled everything and this knob now is level with this one, same height. Here, they're perfectly in line. The numbers on this volume control here, if you recall when I glued those on, this edge here was just sticking out. It was just the paper and it was only attached on the ring around near the knob. So while I had all that apart, I 3D printed a sleeve to fit over the existing knob, and this is now supported, so it's a much better option. I'm going to put the hands on, and the first one is the alarm set hand, and I've painted all these. I painted these blue. They seem to be a blue color originally, so I've matched it, and it actually matches that blue there. Now I've got to set that, and I need to, I think it just clicked. I was going to say I need to set this so the timer clicks. Oop, oh, there it is. So that needs to go about on the 12. I'll go around again. It'll needs to be reasonably accurate, I guess. So just do it slowly. There it is. So now it's just a matter of putting the rest of the hands on. And if I line them all up at 12, everything should be right. That one there, I actually broke that off when I was removing it, so I managed to solder it back together. And last of all is the second hand. I'll line that up as well. This is in on, I'll put it to auto, which is there, and I'll put some power on. And there she goes. And there's the sound coming up. There, I can just hear it.
To the Second World War.
Okay. So if I turn that, it turns off here. Okay. We'll come back to 12 o'clock. Should click and come back on. There it is. Once it's turned itself on automatically, you'd put it back to on and it'll just keep going for as long as you need it for. I'll put it back on auto. I'll put it on for 1 o'clock and I'll turn the hands to go to 1 o'clock. There it is. A little bit before 1, but that's okay. That's about it for the radio. I don't think I'll do anything else to it. There is something I want to do this week before I close off, and next week we'll have a look at the cabinet. As I said, I'm going to do the case next week, but in the meantime I thought I'll do these two dial covers or dial lens and see if I can remake them. They both look like that originally, but I polished this one up, but it's got cracks along here and around the edges. It's not clear at all. So I'm going to try and remake them. It's just two very small screws which I've previously had out when I polished it. This is the one I've already polished and it's not too bad. If I polished it a bit more, it'd probably come up okay, but it is yellow. I'll try and make a new one. If I can't, I can still use these. I'm going to make a mold. I'll use this ply and it's about the same thickness as the depth of the lens there. So that should be all right. I'll make a circle to go in there, then I'll make a hole, or a piece of board with a hole, and heat it all up and push this down and hopefully recreate that shape. I'm measuring it here and I'm getting about 97.6 or something on the outside. And I really need the inside, of course, but a bit hard to measure with a vernier caliper, the inside there. So I measure the outside and then deduct the thickness. And I've got 1.4, so that's 2.8 mil thick in total, that is. So I'll take that away from the original measurement and cut a disc. Here's the two pieces, and this one should fit in there. But my plastic that I'm going to use is a bit thinner than this, so it's probably going to be tight. And then that one should fit in there, like that. So there it is. It's not a bad fit. It does need to be dressed out. I've got to shape it slightly, put some angles on it and round the edges, but I think that'll be okay. I'll go outside, set everything up, and we'll try and bake a new one. I've made up a little mould assembly here. There's the holes I cut in the disc, of course. I've got a little bit of wood here, and if I put that in there, it'll keep that off that round bit that I cut. I have a bit of plastic that I'm going to try and form. So I'll put that there, put the whole thing in the oven, heat it up, and then take the stick out and drop it down. It should centre it, hopefully. I've taken the protective coating off the plastic here. So if I put that about the centre, I'll put it in the oven. When it's warm, we'll press it down. Ah, there it is. Oh, good. A pie for lunch. It's almost 20 minutes. We'll take it out and see what's happened to it. Now what I'm hoping is it was going to dome. It looks like it has domed, but it's sunk down again. Maybe I didn't need to heat it that long. Anyway, I'll see how this goes, and then I'll improve on the procedure or the method. I've warmed up the mould, and I've just put a sheet of the acrylic in there. I'll give it maybe a minute or so. That should get it hot enough, and I'll take it out and we'll try and mould that. No, it's done it again. That's in there for about 30 seconds. So, well, stretched it out. Hang on a minute. There it is, and it's not too bad. It's got a small rip. Oh gosh, it's almost not there. I reckon that's close enough to being okay. I'll do another one. I need to do two anyway. If that comes out better, I'll probably make another one, but worst comes to worst, I'll use that. I thought I'd better show this next one as well. And this time I've put some screws in to hold the board down. It's got a bow in it from the heat, and I've got to hold it down for too long. So I put some screws in and hold it down for me. So that was in for about maybe 45 seconds. So I had this in, didn't really heat it up all that much. Put that on top. About 45 seconds later, took it out, screwed it down. We'll just let it cool off. It's been cooling for about 10 minutes, so should be firm enough. Okay. That's fantastic. It's perfect. There's no ripples in it at all. Yeah, I'm really happy with that. I'm going to go and take a cold shower. Yeah, I'll make another one, and I'm really happy with these. I made a second dial cover, so now I've got the two that I need for the radio, and these have come up absolutely perfect. I've done these so many times trying to make different covers, and they've always come out a bit, got marks in them or something. So the way I did this, it's come out spot on. You really can't complain at all. So they're fantastic. I'll put these aside. What I didn't say was what I was using for the plastic. So it's clear plastic sheet. It's 30 thou thick, or 0.7 millimeters thick. It's made by Precision Metals, this one. But I got this at a hobby shop, and I think they use it for making canopies for model aeroplanes. Earlier in the video I said I was going out and going to cut the circle. Well, I thought that's silly. I'll cut the circle out of the whole piece of board. I needed to leave a gap, so I just set the laser so it cut the gap as well. So you get a little ring there. Now, of course, not everyone has a laser cutter, I get that, but the laser does it so accurately. You can, of course, just do it using a saw or whatever you've got available. Before I go, I have a small problem with this clock that I need to sort out. I've pulled the clock out and I've pulled it apart completely. And the reason is there's a little device here called a kicker, and it moves back and forward as the clock is working, and its purpose is to make sure the clock runs in the correct direction. Now, I knew it wasn't working when I reassembled it the first time, but I thought it doesn't matter. You just take the power off, put it back on again, and 50% of the time it'll start the right way. It turns out that ratio wasn't quite right, and it just about started backwards almost every time. So it got a bit annoying with me turning the power on and off. It wouldn't matter in normal service unless you had a power outage, but I thought I'd better fix it. This is the kicking mechanism here, this plate, and there's a little disc with 3 little pawls on it. This gear up here is driven directly off the motor, and you can see the little plate moving back and forward, and it does that the whole time the clock's running. But if you go backwards, the little pawl catches on this kicker plate, like that. So it only goes one way, and it just catches down there. I can take this top plate off and we can have a closer look. Here's the little disc here, and it's got the 3 little ratchet balls on the top, and you can see one of them particularly is worn. I can't quite see it there, but this top edge is worn here on all of them, and the kicker plate was worn there and over here. So I've put some JB Weld in there to fill it up. I didn't think I would be able to silver solder onto the little pawl bit, so I thought this was probably a better way of doing it. Another close-up of it working, and if it goes backwards it just hits that little block there. So now that that's fixed, I can put this all back together. I'll clean it up properly, oil it again, and put it back in the radio. I've refitted the clock. Let's see if it goes the right way when I put power on. Power on. Power off. Power on. Power off. Power on. You can just see it jump backwards there as it tried to go backwards and then started in the right direction. So I'm calling that fixed. I'm still having trouble with this clock. It keeps stopping. I pulled it apart again, made sure everything was clean, everything was lubricated correctly. It spins freely by finger, I can turn it, but it still keeps stopping. Now it will run for maybe an hour, 2 hours, and it's fine. Then all of a sudden it won't work. And what I worked out was the voltage was changing as the public demand on the system was dragging it down or letting it come up. So the voltage ranges here from about 235. It'll go up to 250 on a sunny day with the solar panels. I've got it on 250 now and it's working. It's been working for the last 2 hours. I'll drop that voltage down. I'll show you what happens. I've got the variac here. I'll drop it down and the clock will stop. There it is there. So it's stopped at about 230 somewhere, 235 maybe, and it just won't go again. Now if I put the voltage back up to about the 250 mark, I have to give it a whack on the top to get it to work. There it goes. So it's one of two things: either there's too much friction in the clock, which I don't think there is, or the coil that I wound doesn't have enough windings on it. So what I'll do is take the coil out, add some more windings, put it back in, and I think that'll fix that problem. I've added the extra turns and it's pretty much flush with the top. I can't really add any more. It's added over 2,500 turns to it, so that's quite a bit. I'll turn this off, I'll reassemble the motor. There's something else I want to do to the clock before I reassemble it. I started to rethink this idea of using JB Weld to rebuild this kicker plate. I had originally started designing a replacement printed one, and I sort of gave it up, then just went for the JB Weld. But I went back and kept going with the design, and there's a number of prototypes there, but I did come up with a working model after a while. And here it is here working. I used PLA plastic for the little kicker here, and that's pretty robust. It'll last for a number of years, no problem. So I'm happy with that outcome. I'll be able to sleep at night. I'll put the clock back together. We'll see how it goes. I refitted the coil. The clock is running, and it has been running for probably just on 20 hours now. Now I kept coming in and checking, and the voltage was varying from 250 down to about 234 it got to, and the clock was still going. So I think that solved the problem. It just didn't have enough turns on it. I'll reassemble this back into the radio, but I'm pretty confident it's going to keep working. I've had this radio running now for about 2 days and it's working perfectly. The clock's working. So next time I'm going to do the case. Now I'm not going to dwell too much on the case. The ratings drop off when I do the case, so I'll just do it quick, show you what I'm going to do, and that's about all. I do have to make a new back, which might be interesting, and there's a couple of other little things I need to do. Then I can put it all together and we can have a look and see what it looks like. I hope you enjoyed this week's video, and I hope you can join me next time for my next radio adventure.